Hey guys, get comfy, pull up your blanket, and let's drift way back to a place where sandals slapped against marble. Olive oil was basically life's answer to everything, and philosophy was the ancient version of small talk. Welcome to ancient Greece. You might think you could handle it too, you've seen the movies, maybe even tried a toga at a costume party once, but trust me, you wouldn't last a single day here. Let's start at sunrise. The air smells like dust, goats, and wood smoke, and you're lying on a bed that's basically a wooden frame stuffed with straw. No mattress, no memory foam, just pokey bits of nature reminding you it's time to get up. You're probably in a small house, built from mud bricks that hold in the summer heat and winter chill, like a curse from Zeus himself. The roof leaks a little, the floor is dirt, and if you're lucky, there's a tiny window that lets in some light, long with flies. You stretch, try to sit up, and immediately regret it. Your back hurts. There's no coffee, no toothbrush, no sink. If you want to wash your face, there's a clay basin in the corner with water you hauled up yesterday from the communal well. You might share that water with your family, or your neighbor's chickens. Hygiene, in ancient Greece, was creative, and clothes. Forget the neat folds and glowing white chitons you see in movies. Real ancient Greeks wore linen or wool, depending on the season. It's itchy, heavy, and if you're poor, which, statistically speaking, it's probably stained with sweat and olive oil. You tie it with a rope or pin it with a brooch, and you're done. That's your outfit for the day. Now, you step outside, squinting at the sunlight bouncing off white stone. The streets are narrow, dusty, and filled with the smells of goats, fish, and people. A lot of people. Ancient Greek cities weren't the clean, marble wonderlands of Hollywood. They were crowded, loud, and smelled like a mix of garbage, smoke, and humanity. There's no plumbing, no organized trash collection, and definitely no deodorant. If you survive the smell, congratulations. You're doing better than most modern visitors would. You might think breakfast will make things better. Bad news. Breakfast is barley bread dipped in wine. No eggs, no bacon, no syrupy pancakes, just a chunk of hard bread softened in whatever cheap wine you can afford. And don't even think about coffee. Wouldn't exist for another 2,000 years. If you're feeling fancy, maybe you can throw in some olives, but that's it. Now that you're fed, it's time to start your day, but what you do next depends on who you are. And in ancient Greece, that matters a lot. If you're a free man, you've got options. You might head to the agora, the marketplace, to gossip, argue about politics, and pretend you're doing business. The agora isn't just a market, it's the heart of Greek life. It's where ideas are traded as much as goods. Someone's selling figs, another's shouting about taxes, and a third guy is probably halfway through a loud philosophical debate about the meaning of life. And if you're thinking you'll just blend in, good luck. You don't speak the dialect, your accent's weird, and your clothes look off. Plus, people here are suspicious of outsiders. Greece wasn't one big united country, it was a patchwork of city-states, each proud, each suspicious of the others. If you're in Athens, calling yourself Greek means nothing. You're an Athenian, or you're nobody. And if you wander into Sparta, let's just say that's not a field trip you'd survive. Let's imagine you're in Athens, because that's where most of the drama happens. You wander through the agora, listening to the hum of daily life. There are potters shaping clay, blacksmiths hammering bronze, and slaves running errands for their masters. The social hierarchy here is brutal. You've got citizens at the top, men who were born in Athens to Athenian parents. Beneath them are metics, foreigners who can live and work here but never vote. And below that, slaves, who are more numerous than everyone else combined. And if you're a woman, well, sorry, you don't even get to play the game. Women in Athens stay home, out of sight. They manage the household, raise children, and spin wool. They don't go to the agora, they don't debate, and they definitely don't vote. Life in ancient Greece was not designed with modern equality in mind. If you're a woman dropped into this world, you wouldn't even be allowed to leave your house without a male escort, and if you did, people would gossip for weeks. You might be tempted to head to the gymnasium next because hey, you've seen Greek statues, right? Everyone's ripped. But before you grab your imaginary gym bag, here's a reality check. Ancient Greek gymnasiums were outdoor dirt fields. You'd strip completely naked, yes, everyone did, and rub your skin with olive oil before training. Then, after sweating under the sun, You'd scrape the oil and dirt off your body with a curved tool called a Imagine exfoliating with a butter knife while people discuss philosophy beside you. That's your workout routine. And there's no protein shake waiting at the end, just maybe a handful of dried figs if you're lucky. The gym isn't just about fitness, though it's also where politics, gossip, and teaching happen. Philosophers might wander around, talking about virtue and balance, while young men practice wrestling. It's basically an ancient combo of a gym, a college, and a coffee shop, just with way more nudity. By now, the sun's getting hotter. Athens bakes under the Mediterranean light. You're sweating, probably sunburned, and desperately craving water. You could drink from a public fountain, but good luck trusting the sanitation. The same aqueducts that bring water in are often used as open drains nearby. You'd better hope your immune system can handle 5th century germs. You pass a group of kids playing knucklebones, a game, sort of like Dyson. For a moment, it looks peaceful, but don't get too relaxed. In this world, medicine is primitive, and death is never far away. A simple cut could get infected. A cough could turn deadly. And if you do get sick, your best hope is a doctor who believes your body is made of 4 humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. The cure? Maybe some leeches, or a cup of diluted wine. Good luck with that. By midday, the city hums with energy. Merchants shout prices, donkeys bray, and the smell of roasting fish drifts through the air. You might duck into a shaded colonnade to escape the heat, where philosophers like Socrates or Plato might be debating nearby. But be careful if you try to join in. You'll quickly realize you're out of your depth. They're speaking in fast rhythmic Greek about abstract ideas like justice, virtue, and the soul. You can't even order lunch properly, let alone discuss metaphysics. You decide to just watch. The conversations are passionate, the gestures grand. Ideas here matter more than wealth, at least among the educated. But even that's an illusion. Someone still has to do the farming, the cleaning, the heavy lifting. Most of those people are enslaved, and if you happen to be one of them, your day's not spent in philosophy, it's in the fields, sweating under the same sun, knowing you'll never own anything, not even your freedom. As the afternoon stretches on, the heat becomes unbearable. Most people retreat indoors for a resta, kind of ancient Greek siesta. You might try to nap too, but remember, there's no fan, no air conditioning, no quiet. The streets outside are alive with noise, and flies buzz everywhere. If you manage to drift off, congratulations, you're tougher than most. When you wake, the shadows are longer. The city begins to cool, and people come back out to socialize. Maybe you follow the sound of laughter to a symposium, a drinking party for elite men. But before you get too excited, remember, these aren't wild parties. They're semi-formal gatherings where participants recline on couches, drink wine mixed with water, and discuss philosophy, poetry, and politics. If you drink too much, you'll embarrass yourself. If you speak too boldly, you might offend someone powerful. The wine is strong, and the room smells of incense, sweat, and grape must. Musicians play soft tunes on the lyre, while servants refill cups. And you sitting awkwardly in the corner, trying to remember which philosopher said what, realize you have no idea what's going on. Outside, the city glows under torchlight. The air is filled with the hum of voices, the scent of olive smoke, and the distant rhythm of a festival song. Life in ancient Greece is beautiful, yes, but also raw, uncomfortable, and alien. You've made it to evening, barely. You're tired, hungry, sunburned, and still covered in olive oil from that ill-advised gym visit. The streets are dark now, and without streetlights, you'd better get home fast. Crime's not unheard of, and with no police force, you're on your own. You finally make it back to your little mud brick home. Inside, the air is thick and warm. You light a small oil lamp, the flame flickering against the walls, and eat a simple dinner, maybe bread, olives, and cheese if you're lucky. You lie down on that same straw bed, the sounds of the city fading outside. You survived one day in ancient Greece, barely, but don't get too comfortable because tomorrow, it starts all over again. The night in Athens isn't quiet, not the way you expect nighttime to be. Even lying on your straw mattress, you hear the city breathing. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks, a donkey brays, and someone laughs drunkenly in an alleyway. The air is warm and thick, scented with smoke and the faint salt of the sea drifting in from the port. Your lamp flickers until the oil runs low, and then it's just you, the darkness, and the chorus of old wooden houses creaking in the night wind. You shift, trying to get comfortable, but the straw underneath you crunches and pokes your skin. The blanket's rough wool, heavy and itchy. You can feel the dirt on your feet even after wiping them. There's no glass on the windows, just a wooden shutter, and through its cracks the night hums with life whispers. Footsteps, the slow clop of hooves on stone. You'd think people would sleep soundly after a long day under the Athenian sun. But this world doesn't wind down the way ours does. There's no glow of streetlights, no hum of electricity. Time feels slower. Stranger, somewhere nearby, a temple still burns with a sacred flame. You can almost hear the priests murmuring prayers to Athena, their goddess, protector of the city. If you're unlucky enough to be poor, which you probably are, there's not much safety in the dark. The city doesn't have guards patrolling every street. There's no police, no one to call if something goes wrong. Burglary, fights, or just random mischief, it's all part of the nightly rhythm. You pull your thin blanket tighter, hoping morning comes quickly. Eventually, you drift into a shallow sleep. It's not restful dreams blur with sounds from outside. Maybe it's the echo of laughter from a late-night feast, or maybe it's a fight breaking out. You can't tell. You roll over, and the stars shift through the cracks in your shutter. And then, before you even feel rested, the roosters start. Loud, relentless, impossible to ignore. They don't care about your exhaustion. The first light seeps in, pale and gold, painting the rough walls of your home. A new day in ancient Greece has begun, and your body already feels heavy with it. You rise, stretching sore muscles, brushing bits of straw off your clothes. The same routine awaits: fetch water, light the fire, sweep the floor if you have the energy. There's no plumbing, no faucet to twist, just a clay jar waiting to be filled again. You carry it to the well, joining the quiet line of others doing the same. The morning air smells of ash and dew, a strange mix of freshness and smoke. At the well, gossip flows faster than the water. Women whisper about who married whom, who argued at the marketplace, and whose husband came home smelling suspiciously of wine. Men pass by on their way to the agora, pretending not to listen. Everyone knows everything here, because the city is alive with talk. If you happen to be a woman in this world, this might be one of the few times you step outside during the day, early morning, before the city wakes, when it's safe to be seen without judgment. You keep your eyes down, your shawl wrapped close, your pace quick. Freedom is not something you're given here. It's something you steal in quiet moments like this. Back at home, breakfast is just as humble as yesterday: barley bread, olives, maybe some figs if you're lucky. The bread's stale, the figs too sweet, but it's enough to keep you moving. You eat sitting on the floor or on a low stool, not at a table. Tables are for men's gatherings, not for daily life. Outside, Athens stretches awake. The city hums again with sound merchants shouting, sandals scuffing over stone, the clatter of pottery and the bleating of goats. The sun climbs quickly, and by mid-morning, the streets are alive with heat and dust. You pass a group of artisans hunched over their work, potters shaping clay on slow-spinning wheels, painters adding delicate red and black figures to vases, each telling tiny stories of gods and heroes. There's beauty everywhere in this world, even in its hardship. Every cup, every jar, every carving carries a kind of devotion to craft. You realize nothing here is mass-produced. Everything has a hand behind it, a heartbeat. A few streets away, you hear children reciting lines in chorus. It's a school, just a small one, run by a teacher called a grammatists. The kids, all boys, sit cross-legged on the floor, scratching letters onto wax tablets. They chant the poems of Homer like prayers, their young voices trying to match the rhythm of the ancient verses. Education here isn't about curiosity, it's about discipline and tradition. The stories of gods and warriors are lessons as much as entertainment. If you're a poor child or a girl, though, you wouldn't be there. You'd be helping grind grain, carry water, or spin thread. Childhood in ancient Greece ends early. The world expects you to contribute, even when you're small. The city's pulse is steady now. The agora is filling up again, men clustering in groups, arguing over politics, philosophy, or just the weather. You spot a familiar face, maybe Socrates, that barefoot philosopher, wandering around pestering people with questions about virtue. He's not famous yet, not really, just that odd man everyone knows who never shuts up about wisdom. You might stop to listen, but it's hard to follow his riddles when you're still trying to shake the sleep from your eyes. Near the edge of the agora, a small crowd gathers around a storyteller. His voice rises and falls like the sea, recounting the deeds of heroes long gone. Achilles, Odysseus, Heracles. They're like celebrities to these people, living on in every retelling. For a moment, even you forget the heat, the dust, the aching hunger. That's the power of words. Here they bind everyone together, rich or poor. But the spell breaks when someone shouts about taxes. The city officials are making their rounds, collecting what's owed. You watch as a merchant argues with them, waving his hands dramatically, swearing he already paid. The officials don't care. The bureaucracy of ancient Athens is complex and relentless. You realize just how fragile your peace is. One missed payment, one wrong word, and you could lose everything. You decide to wander toward the Acropolis, its marble temples gleaming in the sunlight. The climb is steep, the path uneven, and the air buzzes with cicadas. When you reach the top, it's breathtaking. The Parthenon towers above, its columns glowing honey-gold against the blue sky. Priests and attendants move quietly, lighting incense, arranging offerings to Athena. You catch the faint scent of burnt olive oil and flowers. It's easy to forget your discomfort here. For a moment, surrounded by such beauty, you understand why they built these temples, to touch the divine, to make sense of a world that's as cruel as it is beautiful. You stand there, sweating, tired, but strangely moved. The city sprawls below, sunlit and alive, a sea of rooftops and white dust. Somewhere in that maze, life keeps happening: markets, arguments, laughter, grief. But you can't stay here forever. The sun's too hot, and your stomach growls again. You head back down, careful on the rocky path. By midday, the heat is punishing. People retreat indoors, doors shuttered, seeking shade. You find a spot under a fig tree, its leaves trembling softly in the warm breeze. There's no breeze strong enough to cool you, though the air feels heavy, pressing against your skin. You close your eyes, listening to the buzz of insects, the faint chatter of distant voices. Maybe you doze for a few minutes. When you wake, the light has shifted, softer now, the edges of the day beginning to blur. A group of women passes by carrying baskets of laundry toward a stream. They'll scrub the clothes by hand, slap them against stones, and hang them on bushes to dry. Their laughter carries through the air, light and fleeting. Even in the heat, even in the struggle, people find small joys. A boy runs past you, barefoot and dusty, chasing a rolling hoop made from a bent branch. His laughter fades into the winding streets. Somewhere, a flute plays a simple tune, probably a shepherd, keeping rhythm for his flock. You realize something strange. As harsh as life here is, no comforts, no privacy, no safety, it's also vivid. Every sound, every smell, every moment is sharp and alive. The city feels like it's breathing with you. As evening approaches, you join the flow of people heading toward the agora again. The heat fades, replaced by the golden glow of sunset. Merchants pack up their stalls, kids chase each other through the dust, and the air fills with the scent of roasting fish and burning olive wood. Someone calls your name more, maybe you imagine it. You pause, looking around at the crowded square. There's a sense of community here that's almost magnetic. Everyone belongs to something: family, tribe, city. You, though, are just a visitor, a ghost wandering through a world that doesn't quite know what to do with you. The torches are being lit now, one by one, small flames flickering in the dusk. The marble temples on the Acropolis glow faintly in the distance, their outlines softened by twilight. You think about those gods, Athena, Apollo, Dionysus, and how much their presence shapes this place. People truly believe they walk among them. Every thunderstorm, every harvest, every illness, they see the gods' hands in all of it. And as night deepens, the laughter starts again. Somewhere nearby, another symposium begins. You hear the faint notes of a lyre, the rhythmic clapping of hands. Maybe you'll wander closer this time, see the flicker of oil lamps through an open doorway. Inside, men recline on couches, their voices lazy with wine. Philosophers, poets, soldiers, all blurring together in the haze of the evening. You stay in the shadows, just watching. The wine flows, the talk drifts between love and politics, and a flute girl plays a slow, haunting tune. Someone recites lines from Homer, another interrupts with a joke, and laughter fills the room. For a second, you almost forget the weight of history between you and them. You're just another person, caught in the quiet magic of the night. The stars come out one by one, glinting above the rooftops. The air cools. Somewhere a temple bell rings softly, calling the last prayers of the day. You start walking home through the narrow streets, the stones still warm beneath your feet. When you reach your door, you pause, looking back at the city. Athens glows softly, alive even in darkness. You slip inside, light your small lamp, and lie back on the straw once more. The sounds fade again, voices, music, distant waves, and as you close your eyes, the same thought returns. Beautiful, brilliant, unforgettable. But this world would eat you alive. The night feels shorter this time, maybe because your body's getting used to the rhythm of this ancient place. The air is cooler now, and through the cracks in the wooden shutter, you see faint moonlight slicing across the dirt floor. You wake before the roosters this time, though only barely. Outside, Athens still sleeps, wrapped in its quiet haze. You can hear the faint rustle of the sea breeze from the port, and the gentle clinking of a wind-battered olive branch against your wall. You lie there for a while, half awake, feeling the world pressed down in silence. It's strange, this feeling so old, so far removed from anything you've known. No hum of machines, no ticking clocks, no glow of digital light. Just the rhythm of breathing, the occasional distant bark, and the faint creak of your door in the wind. Eventually, the roosters start again, sharp and unmerciful. Like an alarm you can't snooze. You sit up, stretching, bones stiff from another night on straw. You pour the leftover water from last night's basin to splash your face, and it's shockingly cold. For a second, you almost feel awake. The house smells faintly of smoke from last night's lamp. You light a new one, watching the flame curl and wobble before catching. The soft glow fills the small room, casting shadows against the uneven walls. A few clay jars line the corner, some half filled with grain or oil. You glance at them and think how everything here feels temporary, fragile even. A fire, a storm, or a careless hand could erase it all. You step outside, and the dawn greets you like a painting. The sky is a pale wash of pink and gold, the rooftops glowing softly, and the city stirring awake. A woman sweeps her doorstep nearby, sending tiny clouds of dust into the air. Somewhere down the street, a man leads a mule laden with amphorae, the rhythmic clop of its hooves echoing through the narrow passage. You head for the well again, the clay jar heavy in your hands. The path is familiar now, past small houses, the smell of baking bread, the gentle chatter of neighbors exchanging morning greetings. Everyone knows everyone here. There's comfort in that, even if it feels a little claustrophobic. At the well, the conversation's already begun. The same gossip, the same rhythm of voices. You fill your jar, careful not to spill, and watch as a young boy tries to impress the women nearby by lifting a full amphora. He fails, of course, and the laughter that follows is soft, teasing, affectionate. Back home, you set the water down and grab a piece of barley bread. It's dry and rough, but you dip it in a little olive oil and take small bites. Simple, repetitive, predictable. Yet there's something grounding in that simplicity. When you finish, you head toward the agora again. The sun isn't high yet, but already the streets are alive. The sounds of Athens waking up are strangely comforting, the vendors shouting, the rhythmic ring of hammers from the smithy, the smell of baking and smoke mixing in the warm air. Today, you notice something different, a procession moving through the street, men carrying branches wrapped in wool, women balancing baskets on their heads filled with offerings. They're singing, their voices low but steady. It's a festival day, though you can't tell which one. There are so many in Athens that it's hard to keep track. Maybe it's for Demeter, goddess of grain, or maybe for Dionysus, the god of wine and chaos. You follow them for a while, drawn by the rhythm of their song. They make their way toward a small temple decorated with garlands of ivy. There's incense burning at the entrance, the smoke rising in thin grey threads that twist into the morning air. The priests chant softly, pouring wine onto the stone altar. Someone brings a small goat forward. It bleats once, sharp and startled, and then the sound cuts off. You look away quickly. Sacrifice is normal here. Ordinary, it's not. Cruelty, it's communication. A way to keep the gods on your side, to remind them that you remember your place. In a world where storms, illness, and famine can destroy you overnight, faith is survival. After the ritual, the crowd disperses slowly, murmuring prayers. The smell of burning fat lingers in the air, mingling with the scent of dust and flowers. You walk back toward the heart of the city, your stomach turning slightly, but there's no time to dwell on it. Life keeps moving, as it always does. You pass a group of men deep in debate near a columned portico. Their voices rise and fall, sharp and musical. You catch fragments of words: justice, truth, honor. It's philosophy hour again. Athens runs on talk, and its favorite topic is always the meaning of life. You recognize a few of them from yesterday's same gestures, same passion, like a play that repeats every day with new lines. A few young men sit nearby, listening intently. Their clothes are clean, their hair oiled neatly. They'll probably grow up to be politicians or poets, maybe even generals. You realize how rigid this world's ladder is. Everyone has their place, and climbing higher depends as much on birth as on skill. For all its talk of democracy, Athens is a city built on layers: citizens at the top, foreigners beneath them, slaves at the bottom. And yet, it works sort of. The city hums with energy, creativity, ambition. People argue, build, paint, write, and dream. You can feel it in the air, this restless drive to outthink, outbuild, outshine. You find yourself near the market again. The stalls overflow with goods: fresh figs, honey, fish from the port, bundles of herbs. The smells are overwhelming, sharp and earthy. A fishmonger yells his prices, waving a freshly caught octopus in the air. Another man haggles loudly over a jar of olive oil, claiming it's too thin. You realize that even in a world this old, people still argue over groceries. You stop to watch a potter shaping clay on his wheel. His hands move slowly, deliberately, as the clay spins between them. The form rises smooth, symmetrical, alive. There's a calmness in his movements, a kind of quiet control that feels almost meditative. When he finishes, he looks up and meets your eye for just a second. He doesn't speak, but the look says it all. Work is life here. As the sun climbs higher, you find shade under an awning and listen to the chatter around you. A poet recites verses about love and war to anyone who'll listen. His voice is soft, rhythmic, carrying fragments of longing into the air. The crowd barely notices him, but he doesn't seem to mind. Art here isn't about fame, it's about survival of spirit. You wander toward the edge of the city, where the smell of the sea grows stronger. The port of Piraeus isn't far. You can almost imagine the chaos there: ships arriving from distant lands, sailors shouting, traders bargaining. Athens feeds on that constant motion, that exchange of goods and ideas. It's what makes it powerful, but not everyone benefits. In a small alley, you pass a row of slaves carrying amphorae on their shoulders, sweat dripping down their backs. Their eyes stay low, their steps mechanical. Some are prisoners of war, others born into servitude. You realize how invisible they are, vital to everything, yet recognized by no one. This city's greatness rests on their exhaustion. The heat presses down again. You find a fountain and cup your hands to drink. The water's cool but tastes faintly of minerals. Around you, children play in the dust, drawing shapes with sticks. A dog naps in the shade nearby, its ears twitching occasionally at flies. Life here isn't easy, but it's constant flowing, repeating, adapting. You decide to walk toward the hills outside the city. The noise fades behind you as you climb, and soon you're surrounded by the scent of thyme and dry grass. From up here, Athens looks different, smaller, almost peaceful. The marble temples gleam like bones in the sunlight. Beyond them, the sea stretches blue and endless. You sit down on a rock and just breathe. The air is dry, clean. You can hear the faint buzz of bees in the wildflowers, the distant clatter of hooves on the road. For the first time since you arrived, there's silence, not the restless kind, but something deeper. You understand why so many Greek thinkers sought wisdom in places like this. Away from the noise, the mind starts to wander. You think about everything you've seen, the order, the chaos, the beauty, the cruelty. You realize that living here would mean giving up a lot: comfort, privacy, even safety. But you'd gain something too, a sense of belonging to something ancient and vast. Every stone, every song, every myth here feels like it's part of one heartbeat. As you sit there, the sun begins to lower, casting long golden lines across the land. The shepherds call their flocks, their voices echoing faintly through the hills. You can almost taste the salt of the Aegean breeze. Eventually, you make your way back down. The city greets you again, noisy and alive. People are gathering for evening fires being lit, meals being prepared, laughter rising from doorways. You smell grilled fish and roasting barley. Someone plays a flute nearby, the melody winding softly through the air. You pass a small courtyard, where a family eats together on low stools. A child giggles as his mother spoons him lentil stew. The father raises his cup and toasts something you don't catch. For all the hardship, there's warmth here, too, a closeness that comes from living side by side, generation after generation, under the same sun. When you finally reach your home, the sky is deep blue, the first stars appearing. You light your oil lamp again, the flame trembling in the draught. Outside, the city hums quietly, its heartbeat steady. You eat your simple dinner, lie back on the straw, and stare up at the wooden beams of the ceiling. It's another day survived. Another day lived in the strange, beautiful, unforgiving rhythm of ancient Greece. You close your eyes as the sounds fade, the distant laughter, the whisper of wind through olive trees, the murmur of a city that never truly sleeps. Somewhere beyond the walls, a poet begins a new verse, a prayer, a story. And tomorrow, you'll wake again to the same sun, the same dust, the same endless echo of history. The sound that wakes you this time isn't the rooster. It's the clatter of hooves and wheels outside, echoing through the narrow streets before dawn. Someone's already up, hauling goods from the countryside into the city. You blink into the dim light, your eyes adjusting to the faint glow of your oil lamp, which has burned almost to nothing. The air is cool and dry, carrying the faint scent of olive smoke from a neighbor's hearth. You sit up slowly, bones creaking, feeling the roughness of the straw against your back. There's a dull ache in your shoulders that never really leaves. You've been sleeping on this makeshift bed long enough now to understand why the ancients were obsessed with balance and moderation. Too much of anything, even rest, hurts. You pull your wool shawl around your shoulders and push open the shutter. The sky outside is just beginning to lighten. A faint grey glow creeps across the rooftops, the city still wrapped in its sleepy hush. Somewhere, a dog stretches and shakes the night from its fur. A man with a torch walks past, his sandals scraping softly against stone. You step out, the cool air brushing your face. The street smells faintly of smoke, manure, and baked earth, somehow both unpleasant and grounding. A few early risers move about, lighting fires, sweeping dust, carrying amphora. The city stirs like an old creature waking slowly. You head toward the well again, the same clay jar under your arm. The path feels familiar now, though the stones are uneven, worn smooth by centuries of feet. The well is already busy, women drawing water, gossiping quietly in the half-light. You wait your turn, listening to the murmur of voices. The rhythm of life here never changes. Rise, work, endure, rest. When it's your turn, you lower the bucket, feeling the rope rough against your hands. The splash below echoes softly. You haul it up, muscles straining, and pour the water carefully into your jar. Cold droplets splash against your wrist. For a moment, that shock of cold feels like luxury. Back home, you light your small fire and eat your usual breakfast bread, wine, maybe an olive or two. The bread's hard as ever, but your jaw's getting used to it. You take slow bites, chewing thoughtfully, listening to the faint buzz of morning voices outside. By the time the sun rises, Athens is already alive again. The agora fills with people, the hum of trade and talk spreading like a tide. You wander through the narrow lanes, drawn by the sounds, the smells of fresh bread, roasting grain, and fish mix in the warm air. Vendors shout prices, and customers argue with theatrical flair, hands waving, voices rising. You pass a row of stalls, selling everything from simple clay cups to fine jewelry. A blacksmith hammers at his anvil, sparks flying. A potter arranges his vases in neat rows, each painted with scenes of gods and heroes. Nearby, a butcher sharpens his knife with slow, deliberate strokes, his table already marked by years of use. Everywhere, there's movement, people carrying baskets, herding animals, shouting across the noise. Athens feels more alive than any modern city, but also more fragile. Every sound is sharp, every scent raw. There's no background hum of machines, no insulation from the world. Everything touches you directly. You stop to watch a farmer from the countryside unload baskets of grain. His clothes are dusty, his skin darkened by the sun. He looks exhausted, but there's pride in his eyes. The city depends on men like him, the ones who rise before dawn, who work the dry, rocky fields of Attica, coaxing barley and olives from the stubborn soil. Farming in Greece isn't easy. The land is beautiful but cruel. Rain is unpredictable, the soil thin. Every harvest feels like a gamble with the gods. You can almost imagine his world beyond the city, the low stone walls dividing fields, the bleating of goats, the buzz of cicadas under the sun. In those villages, life moves even slower than here. The farmer's wife grinds grain by hand, their children gather kindling, and when the day ends, everyone sleeps early, lulled by the rhythm of work and exhaustion. Back in Athens, though everything feels intense, the sun climbs higher and the agora heats up. You find shade near a stone column, watching as a small group of citizens gathered to listen to a herald reading out decrees. His voice is loud, clear, practices announcing new trade rules or maybe tax changes. Most people just nod or mutter. Politics here is both sacred and exhausting. Democracy sounds beautiful on paper. Every citizen has a voice, they say, but in practice, it's a messy, noisy, emotional affair. The assembly can last all day, filled with shouting, persuasion, and arguments that might end in exile for the unlucky. The people love debate almost as much as they love drama. You watch as one man, tall and confident, argues passionately about a law concerning land rights. His voice carries over the crowd, gestures sharp, eyes blazing. The people cheer or boo depending on who's speaking. It's loud, chaotic, but strangely captivating. You realize that politics here is performance, half reason, half theater. Not everyone is allowed to join in, of course. Women, foreigners, and slaves stand on the sidelines. The freedom of democracy is, ironically, built on their exclusion. You think about that as you move away, weaving through the crowd. The bright marble temples that gleam above the city seem to mock that imbalance, beautiful, ideal, but blind to the shadows beneath. As midday approaches, the heat becomes unbearable. The white stone streets reflect the sun like mirrors. People retreat indoors, shutters closing, fires dying down. You follow suit, stepping into a shaded courtyard. The cool air there feels like a gift. You sit for a while, just listening. A lizard darts across the wall. Somewhere nearby, someone sings softly, a lullaby for a child. You drift into a light doze, your body finally giving in to the rhythm of this place. When you wake, the shadows are longer. The city feels slower, gentler. The harsh brightness of the day gives way to the golden calm of evening. You wander toward the outer edge of the city where craftsmen live. The sound of hammering echoes from small workshops. Bronze workers, wood carvers, weavers, all bent over their labor, hands stained and calloused. Their tools are simple, their skill astonishing. A man carving a statue pauses to wipe the sweat from his brow, revealing a half-finished figure of Apollo emerging from marble. You can see the god's face beginning to take shape, serene and cold. It's strange to think this beauty is born from such physical struggle. As you walk, you pass a group of women spinning wool in a shaded doorway. Their fingers move with practiced grace, twisting the fibers into thread. They talk quietly, laughter slipping between their words. For them, this isn't leisure, it's duty. Every thread will become clothing or blankets, maybe even part of a temple offering. You realize that most of life here revolves around necessity. Art, work, faith, they're not separate things. They're woven together, inseparable. The sun dips lower, and the city changes again. Fires are lit, lamps glow in windows, and the air fills with the smell of roasting barley and grilled fish. Somewhere, a flute plays, its notes carrying lazily through the streets. You follow the sound until you reach a small square where people are gathering. It's not a festival, just an evening gathering. A storyteller stands in the center, his hands moving expressively as he speaks. His voice rises and falls like a wave. He's telling a tale from the old myths to one, about Theseus and the Minotaur. The crowd listens intently, mouths half open, eyes wide. Even though they've heard it 100 times, it never gets old. The story belongs to them, it's who they are. You stand at the edge of the group, half hidden in the shadows, and let the words wash over you. The tale is violent and beautiful, filled with gods, monsters, and human foolishness. But what strikes you most isn't the story, it's the way the people react. They don't listen passively. They nod, laugh, murmur, gasp. Every emotion is shared, every word alive. When the story ends, the crowd claps softly, some tossing small coins toward the storyteller's feet. He bows, smiling, and the crowd disperses, returning to their homes and dinners and quiet conversations. You walk again through the dim streets, the city glowing faintly under the starlight. The air is cooler now, scented with smoke and herbs. Somewhere in the distance, you hear the faint sound of the sea, the low, steady breathing of the world. You think about how different everything is here. No clocks, no rushing, no endless noise. Time doesn't move the same way. It stretches, folds, drifts. Life isn't about getting somewhere. It's about enduring where you are. You begin to understand the ancient obsession with balance, with harmony, with finding peace in the middle of chaos. You reach your home again, push open the door, and step inside. The oil lamp flickers weakly as you light it. The walls glow amber. You sit for a moment, staring at the flame, thinking about all the lives that have burned like this, brief, fragile, and yet somehow enough. Outside, the city hums quietly, its pulse steady beneath the stars. You lie down again on your straw bed, the familiar roughness pressing against your skin. Your eyes grow heavy as the sounds fade, the murmurs, the laughter, the soft sigh of wind through olive leaves. You've survived another day in ancient Greece, somehow. Tomorrow will bring the same dust, the same heat, the same fragile beauty. And as you drift towards sleep, you realize that maybe that's the point here. Life isn't about comfort or ease. It's about being part of the endless story. You wake up to a sound that's not quite the city. It's quieter, more natural, birds chirping, wind sighing through olive trees, the faint creak of wood. The air feels different too, lighter and cooler. When you open your eyes, the ceiling above you is thatched, not plastered. The walls are stone, the floor packed earth. Somewhere outside, you can hear the bleating of goats. You're not in Athens anymore. You're in the Greek countryside now, the heart of the land, where most people actually live. The city might shine with marble and philosophy, but this is where the real life of Greece breathes. You step outside, blinking in the morning light. The world around you is quiet, and endless rolling hills covered in olive trees, dry fields of barley, the distant shimmer of the sea. A donkey brays somewhere nearby, and a rooster answers. The smell of wood smoke drifts through the air, mixed with something sweet, fresh bread, maybe, baking in an outdoor oven. The farmer's house you're staying in is simple but sturdy. Thick stone walls keep the heat out and the warmth in. There's a small courtyard where chickens peck at the dirt, and clay jars lined against the wall holding oil and grain. The woman of the house is already awake, her hair tied back, kneading dough with strong, sure hands. She looks up, nods once in greeting, then goes back to her work. Breakfast is the same as always: barley bread, olives, a cup of watered wine, but here it feels different. There's something grounding about it, something that fits perfectly with the quiet rhythm of this place. The man of the house, the farmer, joins you outside. His face is darkened by sun and wind, lines etched deep around his eyes. He carries a wooden staff and wears a simple tunic, the fabric rough from years of washing. He doesn't say much, just gestures for you to follow. Out here, people don't waste words. You walk with him through the fields, the sun rising slowly over the hills. The land looks dry, even harsh, but he moves through it like someone who knows every inch. He points out his crops: barley, mostly, the backbone of Greek life. A few vines for wine, a few rows of olives. Every plant has its place. Every drop of water counts. You realize quickly that farming in Greece isn't for the faint of heart. The soil is rocky, the rain unpredictable. One bad year can mean hunger, but somehow, generation after generation, they manage. It's a dance between endurance and faith, faith in the weather, in the earth, in the gods. As you walk, the farmer tells you a little about those gods. He gestures toward the small shrine standing at the edge of the field, a simple stone, smeared with olive oil, crowned with wildflowers. That's where they make their offerings. A drop of wine, a bit of bread, sometimes a lock of hair. Small gifts, but given with care. He tells you that the goddess Demeter watches over the crops, that the nymphs live in the trees, that Pan roams the hills. You can hear the reverence in his voice. It's not just belief, it's relationship. The gods aren't distant here. They're part of the land, like the wind and the stones. By mid-morning the sun is fierce. The farmer's shirt sticks to his back, and sweat runs down his face. He doesn't stop. You help him for a while, trying to keep pace, but it's exhausting. The tools are heavy, the ground unyielding. The rhythm is simple: dig, lift, sow, but your body isn't made for this. Your hands start to ache, your skin stings where the sun hits it. He laughs softly, not unkindly, and hands you a cup of cool water. You drink gratefully, the liquid tasting faintly of clay. He doesn't say it, but you can see the amusement in his eyes. You wouldn't last a day doing this. When the heat becomes unbearable, everyone stops. You retreat to the shade of an olive tree, sitting on the dry ground, back against the trunk. The air hums with the sound of cicadas. It's too hot to speak, too hot to move. This is the hour of stillness, the time when even the gods seem to rest. Later, when the worst of the heat passes, life stirs again. The farmer's wife calls the family for the midday meal, simple but filling. Lentils cooked with herbs, more bread, a few figs. Everyone eats together, quietly, the only sound, the soft clatter of bowls. When it's done, the farmer leans back, sighs deeply, and closes his eyes for a short nap. You realize that for all its hardship, this life has its balance. Work and rest, sun and shadow, effort and ease. It's all built into the rhythm of the land. In the afternoon, you walk with the farmer's son to fetch water from a nearby spring. The path winds through scrub and stone, the air heavy with the scent of thyme and wild sage. When you reach the spring, the water is clear and cold, bubbling up from between rocks. You fill the jars, your reflection trembling on the surface. For a moment, everything feels ancient and unchanging. On the way back, the boy tells you about the upcoming festival in the nearby village. It's in honor of Dionysus, the god of wine, joy, and a little bit of chaos. The family is going, of course. Everyone goes. It's the one time of year when the hard edges of life soften, when laughter and wine drown out worry. That evening, you sit with them outside under the stars. The air is warm and still. Fireflies blink in the dark like tiny sparks. The farmer strums a simple lyre, and his wife hums softly. The song is slow and wistful, about the sea, about longing, about the way life drifts like a wave. You don't understand all the words, but you don't need to. The feeling is enough. In the distance, you can see the faint glow of another village, another fire, another song. It hits you then how many lives fill this land, so many people doing the same small things, day after day, century after century. And yet, somehow, every life matters. When the festival finally arrives, the whole valley seems to come alive. You walk with the family along the dirt path leading to the village square, the air buzzing with excitement. The smell of roasted meat, wine, and crushed grapes fills the air. People laugh loudly, dance barefoot in the dust, shout greetings across the crowd. At the center of it all stands a wooden altar to Dionysus, draped with ivy and ribbons. Someone pours wine over it, someone else begins to sing. The songs are wild and joyful, half praise, half celebration of life itself. You find yourself drawn into the rhythm, the clapping, the laughter, the stomping feet. For once, everyone seems free. The old men dance, the women laugh, the children chase each other through the crowd. Even the farmer you met earlier is smiling broadly, his face flushed with drink. The night deepens, and the songs grow wilder. The fire burns high, sparks rising into the dark sky. You can feel the energy of it, all the release, the letting go. It's not just about the god of wine. It's about remembering that joy still exists, even in a hard life. You sip from a clay cup of wine, the flavor sharp and earthy. Around you, voices blend into a single roar of laughter and song. The world feels simple, here pain and pleasure, work and rest, life and death, all part of the same circle. At some point, you wander away from the crowd, walking up a small hill overlooking the valley. From there, you can see the flicker of torches, the swirling dancers, the golden firelight painting everything in motion. The stars above are endless, cold and ancient. Watching this brief, burning moment of humanity below, you realize then that life in ancient Greece isn't about survival or comfort, it's about rhythm. It's about belonging to something larger, something that doesn't end when you do. The land, the stories, the gods, the people, they're all connected. When you finally return to the farmhouse, the fire has burned low. The farmer's wife has fallen asleep in her chair, the embers casting a soft orange glow across her face. You lie down on your rough bed, the night air cool against your skin, and close your eyes. Somewhere out in the fields, an owl calls. The wind shifts through the olive trees, and as you drift toward sleep, you can almost hear the heartbeat of the land itself, steady, patient, eternal. You've made it through another day in ancient Greece, but you can already feel it in your bones. This life would break you if you stayed too long. It's too raw, too real, and yet, in its own way, it's beautiful. The morning comes not with birdsong this time, but with the sound of waves, slow, steady, endless. You open your eyes and instead of hills and olive trees, you see light glinting off water through a narrow window. The air smells of salt and tar and fish, thick and alive. You sit up slowly, the rough blanket sliding off your shoulders. The wooden floor beneath you creaks as you stand, your legs still heavy from yesterday's long walk. When you open the door, the sound hits you fully, the calls of sailors, the crash of ropes, the slap of waves against hulls. You've made your way to the coast, to Piraeus, the bustling harbor of Athens. The sun is just rising, casting the water in gold. Dozens of ships rock gently at anchor's leak, triremes with rows of oars, broad trading vessels piled with goods, small fishing boats painted in fading colors. The docks are alive already, even at dawn. Men shout orders, lift crates, coil ropes. Seagulls dive overhead, their cries sharp and greedy. The port smells of everything at once: seaweed, salt, oil, smoke, and sweat. You watch a group of dock workers unloading amphorae, their movements quick and practiced. Each jar holds something valuable: olive oil from the countryside, wine from the islands, grain from Egypt. Trade is the lifeblood of Athens, and here you can feel it pulsing. You wander along the waterfront, weaving between piles of cargo and coils of rope. Everywhere you look, there's motion sailors carrying goods, merchants arguing over prices, slaves hauling water or scrubbing decks. The rhythm of labor is relentless. The sun hasn't even reached its peak, and already their backs glisten with sweat. One man catches your Aja sailor, sitting on an overturned barrel, mending a torn sail with thick, calloused fingers. His hands are scarred, his face leathery from years at sea. When you greet him, he nods, half smiling, and offers you a drink from a clay jug. The wine is harsh, almost sour, but it burns pleasantly in your throat. He tells you about his life weeks at sea, sleeping under the stars, rowing through storms, eating dried fish and barley. The pay isn't good, he says, but it's better than starving inland. He laughs as he says it, a dry, tired laugh that hides a lifetime of salt and wind. You can see why he keeps going. The sea, dangerous as it is, offers freedom that the land never does. He points out to the ships moored farther away, where men move like shadows along the decks. Those, he says, are warships, dreams of the Athenian navy, sleek, deadly, each with 3 rows of oars and a bronze ram at the prow. The pride of the city, built not just for defense but for power. Athens rules the sea, and everyone knows it. You can imagine them in battle, slicing through waves, oars flashing like blades, voices chanting in rhythm. It's beautiful and terrifying at once. The sailor tells you that most of the rowers are poor citizens or freedmen, paid little but proud to serve. They sit shoulder to shoulder for hours, pulling in unison, every stroke echoing through their bones. He says you'd probably last 10 minutes before your arms gave out. You believe him. As the morning grows brighter, the market near the harbor comes to life. You follow the crowd, drawn by the noise and color. Stalls line the streets, piled high with fish still glistening from the sea: octopus, mackerel, eels, strange spiny creatures you can't name. The fishmongers shout prices, waving knives as they clean their catch. The smell is overwhelming, sharp and heavy with salt. You buy a small piece of grilled fish from a woman with quick hands and a quick tongue. She sprinkles it with herbs and squeezes a bit of lemon over it. The flavor is simple but rich, the taste of the sea itself. You eat it standing among sailors and merchants, each of them shouting, laughing, bargaining. It's loud and alive and messy, and somehow it all fits together. Nearby, a group of traders argue over a shipment of grain from Sicily. Their voices rise and fall like waves. A scribe sits beside them with a wax tablet, noting every agreement, every oath. In a world without paper or contracts, words in memory are law. You realize how fragile it all is. One storm, one broken promise, and the city starves. You wander farther inland, where the air smells less like fish and more like people-baked bread, sweat, oil, wine. Small taverns line the alleys, their doors open to the noise of laughter and music. Inside one, a few sailors are already drinking despite the hour, their cups clinking as they sing a song about Poseidon's wrath and the mercy of calm seas. You sit for a while, sipping watered wine, watching the flicker of an oil lamp dance on the wall. A young man at the next table is telling a story, something about a storm that wrecked half the fleet. The others listen, shaking their heads, crossing themselves in small gestures of respect for the sea. Even the bravest men here speak of the ocean as if it's alive, unpredictable, moody. You start to understand why so many Greek myths are about the water. When you step back outside, the sun is high and the harbor shimmers like glass. A trireme is setting out, its oars rising and falling in perfect rhythm. You can hear the beat of the drum that keeps the rowers in sync, deep and steady. The ship glides across the water, its sail catching the wind, and for a moment it feels like watching a living thing breathe. You follow the shoreline, past warehouses and workshops where craftsmen repair sails and shape bronze fittings. In one shop, a young boy polishes a small statue of a sea god, his reflection distorted in the gleaming metal. The statue is beautiful, but you can see how his hands tremble. He's learning the craft from his father, who watches silently, correcting him with a nod or a grunt. Here, every skill is passed down like a secret. Beyond the docks, near a rocky outcrop, you find a small temple overlooking the sea. The white marble columns are worn smooth by salt and wind. Inside, the air smells of incense and seaweed. Offerings line the altar, small shells, bits of coral, tiny boats carved from wood. Someone has left a cup of wine, another a handful of barley. It's dedicated to Poseidon, lord of the sea. You stand there for a while, listening to the waves crashing below. It's easy to see why they worship him. The sea gives life, but it can take it away just as easily. The Greeks live in constant negotiation with their gods, their prayers both grateful and fearful. By late afternoon, the harbor begins to quiet. The traders retreat to their homes, the sailors to the taverns. You walk along the breakwater, watching the sky turn from gold to deep blue. The water reflects every color, shifting and restless. Somewhere far out, you see the dark shape of an island, maybe Aegina or Salamis, floating on the horizon. You sit down on a stone ledge, feeling the warmth of the day fade from it. The world around you slows. The gulls settle on the piers, the last boats drift in, the voices grow softer. The air smells of salt and oil and dusk. Behind you, the city lights begin to flicker on, one by one, lamps and torches glowing in doorways, reflections rippling on the water. The laughter from a tavern carries faintly on the breeze. Someone's playing a flute, the notes soft and wandering. You watch as a sailor kneels by the water's edge, murmuring a prayer before heading home. He dips his fingers in the sea, touches them to his forehead, then walks away without looking back. The gesture is so simple, so human, that it makes your chest ache. Everyone here, no matter how rough or loud, understands how fragile they are under the vastness of the world. You stay until the stars come out, bright and close above the dark water. The sea glows faintly in the moonlight, silver ripples moving like breath. You think about all the lives tied to this place, the traders, the rowers, the fishermen, the slaves who never see beyond the docks, each one a thread in the endless fabric of the city. You realize that Athens isn't just marble temples and philosophers arguing in the sun. It's this toothless sweat, the labor, the smell of the harbor, the men who risk their lives for grain and oil and fish. Without them, the city would starve, the statues would crumble, the wisdom would fade. As the night deepens, you walk slowly back toward the city, the path lit by scattered torches. The air cools, and the sound of the waves follows you, steady and patient. You pass a group of dock workers sleeping on the ground, their bodies curled under rough blankets, too tired to care about the cold. You think again of how soft your own world is, how far removed from this raw physical life. By the time you reach the outskirts of the city, the streets are nearly empty. The lamps flicker in the breeze, casting long shadows. Somewhere, an old woman sings softly to herself, the melody low and ancient. You don't understand the words, but it feels like a song the sea itself would know. You finally reach a quiet inn and slip inside. The room smells faintly of smoke and linen. You lie down, the faint rocking of the sea still in your body, the sound of waves echoing in your ears. Outside, the harbor keeps breathing, restless even in sleep. And as you drift off, you realize that in ancient Greece, survival isn't about comfort, it's about rhythm, trust, and endurance. The people don't conquer the world. They learn to live inside it, carried by its tides. You'd think the agora would be fun, like a town square full of life and laughter, but after 10 minutes, your modern senses are overwhelmed. The heat, the noise, the smell. The smell is like if someone left a bag of shrimp in a gym locker for a week, and then invited you to meditate beside it. And yet, for the Greeks, this is the heartbeat of civilization. It's where democracy, gossip, trade, and philosophy all crash together like waves on the shore. A man waves you over. He's wearing a simple white tunic, but you can tell he thinks he's important. His name's Diodorus, and he's an orator, which, in Athens, means he stands around talking loudly about things no one asked about, and somehow everyone listens. You try to understand him, but he's speaking classical Greek, fast, rolling the words like thunder. You catch something about justice and the good of the polis, but you mostly nod and hope you look smart. This, by the way, is another reason you wouldn't last a day here. Everyone in Athens has an opinion about everything. The weather, philosophical, the best olive oil, political. Even your sandals could start a debate about class and ethics. You can't just scroll past the arguments, you are the argument. Nearby, two men are arguing so intensely that they've drawn a small crowd. You edge closer. One of them is old and bearded, wearing a robe that looks like it's never seen soap. The other is young and wide-eyed, gesturing with both hands. You've stumbled into an impromptu philosophy debate, the ancient Greek version of a podcast, except nobody's getting paid. The older man is explaining that true happiness comes from virtue, from living a good life in balance with nature. The younger man interrupts, insisting pleasure is the real goal of life. The old man glares. You've just walked into the eternal Greek argument. Stoicism versus hedonism. You think about chiming in, maybe drop a quote from a motivational Instagram post, but then you realize these men could talk for hours, maybe days. No winner, no agreement, just a constant back and forth that seems to power the whole city. You quietly back away before they notice you. But debates aren't the only thing the Greeks love. They also adore drama, and I don't mean gossip. Athens is home to the theatre, the birthplace of tragedy and comedy. In fact, while wandering the market, you hear a man shouting about tickets to a new play down at the Theatre of Dionysus. It's a hot day, but you decide to go, because when in Athens, you don't skip the drama. The theatre sits right beneath the Acropolis, carved into the hillside like a giant stone shell. Thousands of citizens pack in, men only, of course, because women are supposed to stay home, quietly pretending they don't exist in public life. The crowd is loud, tossing olives and laughing before the show even starts. You find a seat and notice everyone around you smells like sweat, wine, and dust. The show begins. Actors appear wearing masks with exaggerated expressions, smiling, frowning, some even painted half black, half white, to show inner conflict. Their voices boom across the open air. There are no microphones, no speakers, just pure trained projection, echoing off marble. The chorus sings, the audience laughs, and sometimes cries. The topics: death, betrayal, gods, war, love. Basically the same themes as modern Netflix, just with more sandals and fewer special effects. Halfway through the play, you realize something strange. Everyone's reacting loudly. They shout advice to the characters, cheer for heroes, and boo villains. It's not quiet, polite theater. It's like watching a football game and a soap opera at the same time. By the end, you're emotionally exhausted. You try to leave quietly, but people stop you to talk about what it meant. Everyone has a theory. Was it about fate, or the gods, or politics? You just want a nap, but no one in ancient Greece ever stops thinking. You head back toward your host's home, but not before getting caught in a small religious procession. A group of men in white robes carries a statue of Athena, chanting and waving olive branches. A young girl walks beside them, holding a basket of flowers. Everyone around you joins in, and before you can escape, someone shoves a small offering into your hands, a bit of bread and honey. You awkwardly place it on the altar, trying to look respectful. This is another key part of Greek life, piety. Even if you're not sure you believe in the gods, you still honor them. Everyone does. The gods are everywhere, in the wind, in your crops, in your luck, even in your hangover. Forget to thank them, and your day might turn from bad to tragic real fast. Back at the house, you try to wash off the day. There's no bathroom, of course. You use a clay basin and a bit of olive oil. Yes, they're cleaned with oil, not soap. You rub it on, then scrape it off with a curved metal tool called a strigil. It's like exfoliating with salad dressing, and somehow, they swear it works. Afterward, you sit down to dinner, finally, some food. But don't get too excited. The Greeks aren't known for huge meals. The diet's simple: bread, olives, cheese, figs, maybe a bit of fish if you're lucky. Meat's rare unless it's a festival or you're rich. The host pours wine, but it's mixed with water. Drinking it straight is considered barbaric. You lift your cup and try to fit in. The talk turns to politics again. Everyone here's obsessed with it. Who's voting for what? Which general's winning? Which city's rebelling? You nod along, pretending you understand, but really, you're just thinking about dessert. Spoiler, there isn't one. As the meal winds down, the men recline on couches while slaves clear the dishes. Someone brings a small lyre, and soon the evening shifts into a symposium, a drinking party mixed with intellectual talk. Think of it as an ancient TED Talk with worse lighting. Wine flows. People recite poetry. Someone quotes Homer from memory. A man beside you begins ranting about the meaning of love, eros, philia, agape. The conversation gets deep fast, and you realize you're the only one here who doesn't speak in metaphors. As the night stretches on, laughter fills the room. You sip your watered wine, eyes growing heavy, the air thick with smoke and candlelight. Outside, cicadas sing in the trees, and from somewhere down the street, the faint sound of a flute drifts through the warm air. You think, for just a moment, that maybe you could survive here, but then your stomach growls, because honestly, olives and bread aren't enough for someone used to fast food. You imagine what tomorrow might bring: more debate, more sun, more olive oil, and you realize that in ancient Greece, there's no such thing as a lazy day. You finally stretch out on your straw-filled mattress, staring up at the ceiling beams. Somewhere outside, someone's still arguing about ethics. You close your eyes, half listening, half drifting into sleep, wondering how these people manage to invent philosophy and democracy and theater, all while never taking a nap. You'd think that finally, at this hour, the city would quiet down, that maybe Athens, the loud sun-baked home of thinkers and talkers, would take a breath. But no, even the night hums here. The air's thick and warm, and somewhere beyond the courtyard, laughter spills through the narrow alleys. You roll over half curious, half delirious, wondering what kind of people are awake at this hour. Turns out, quite a few, because even though ancient Greece didn't have neon lights or espresso, it still had nightlife. But it's not what you're used to. No clubs, no bars, no street food carts, just the occasional tavern tucked into a shadowy corner, where men gather to drink unmixed wine and talk politics until someone passes out or starts singing. And those taverns, they're not respectable places. Women of honor don't go near them. You could though if you don't mind the mix of sweat, smoke, and regret in the air. Inside, oil lamps flicker, throwing gold light on walls streaked with soot. A musician plays a flute badly, and a few men sit slumped over pottery cups, muttering about Sparta. It's here that you'd find the other side of Athenian life, the one that doesn't show up in philosophy scrolls. There are dancers, entertainers, and the Hittiri women trained not just in beauty, but in conversation, art, and music. They're not wives, they're companions, often smarter and freer than most women in Athens. You notice them laughing easily, moving through the smoky room like they own it, and for a moment, the mood feels strangely modern, like these are the only people in the city who truly know how to have fun. You slip outside before things get too hazy. The streets are quieter now, except for the occasional stray dog or cart creaking in the distance. Above you, the sky is impossibly dark, no city lights, no buzz of electricity, just the moon hanging huge and heavy over the Acropolis. It's peaceful, in that ancient kind of way. The air smells like dust, olives, and faint sea salt drifting from the harbor. But peace doesn't mean safety. You have to remember, there are no police like you know them. If you get mugged or lost, it's on you. Most people travel in groups after dark, carrying torches or trusting the gods to guide them. You stick close to the walls, passing by the faint outline of a temple, its marble glowing ghost-white in the moonlight. Back home, your host's household is asleep, or pretending to be. You can hear soft footsteps from the women's quarters, a part of the house completely separate from where men sleep and eat. Athenian society is strict about that. Women of the house are expected to stay out of sight, managing servants, weaving, raising children. Their world is small, tucked behind closed doors. If you peeked into that part of the home, not that you'd be allowed, you'd find a very different rhythm of life. The wife, maybe 20 years old, but already with 3 children, lies on a mat beside them. Her hands are rough from spinning wool. The flicker of the oil lamp dances on the walls, showing jars of grain, baskets of cloth, small clay idols of household gods. It's not glamorous, but it's the quiet engine of Greek society, the part that keeps everything turning while the men argue in the agora. You drift half asleep again, listening to the distant call of a night bird. Then, somewhere in the darkness, a rooster screams like it's auditioning for a horror movie. Morning in ancient Greece doesn't ease in gently, it snaps awake. The first light seeps through the doorway, gold and harsh, and before you've even sat up, the city's alive again. People are already outside. You hear sandals slapping stone, pots clanging, vendors shouting. The baker's boy runs past, carrying loaves still steaming from the oven. You catch that smell, warm bread and ash, and it almost makes you forget how stiff your back feels. Breakfast, if you can call it that, is simple. A bit of bread dipped in wine or olive oil, maybe a few figs if you're lucky. No eggs, no coffee, no sugar. You take a bite and try not to think about pancakes. The Greeks didn't really do breakfast. They ate light, saving energy for the day ahead. As you chew your modest meal, you glance outside. The men of the household are getting ready to head out. Some to the agora, some to their workshops, some to train at the gymnasium. Yes, that gymnasium, the birthplace of the word, but not what you're picturing. You follow them, still half awake, and when you arrive, your jaw drops a little. The gymnasium is a sprawling open courtyard, surrounded by colonnades. Men and only men are everywhere, running, wrestling, throwing discus, and doing it all completely naked. Yup, that's not just a myth. The Greek word gymnos literally means naked. You suddenly realize why Socrates hung out here so much. It's not just about fitness though. The gymnasium is also a social and intellectual hub, a place to exercise the body and the mind. Philosophers wander through, discussing ethics with athletes. Students listen to lectures under shady trees. Imagine a mix between a sports club, a coffee shop, and a university, all in one place. You try to blend in, maybe pick up a discus, but it's heavier than it looks. One throw and it goes about 2 feet before rolling sadly into the sand. A few men laugh, not unkindly, but you can feel your 21st century dignity shrinking. After the workout, they clean themselves with oil and strigils. Again, no towels, no showers, just scrape and go. The air smells of sweat and olives, and somehow, everyone looks like they belong on a marble statue. You, meanwhile, just want a nap and maybe a Back in the city, the day heats up quickly. You pass by temples where priests prepare offerings, incense, smoke curling into the sky, the sound of chanting echoing off stone. Religion isn't a weekend thing here, it's woven into every day. You might see someone whispering a prayer before crossing a threshold, or touching a small statue for luck. The gods aren't abstract ideas, they're living presences, moody, unpredictable, and watching. The air grows thick with heat. The marble streets shimmer. Children chase each other through alleys, and vendors shout about fresh figs and amphorae of wine. Everywhere you go, life hums with energy, raw, loud, unfiltered. But that energy hides a truth. Life here is fragile. There are no antibiotics, no painkillers, no safety nets. A small cut can turn deadly. A bad harvest can starve a city. For all their philosophy and art, the Greeks live with a constant sense that fate could turn on them at any moment. Maybe that's why they think so deeply about what it means to live well, because they know it might not last. As the afternoon wanes, the city shifts again. Work slows, shadows stretch, and people retreat indoors to escape the heat. The world goes quieter, softer. You sit near a fountain, watching sunlight dance on the rippling water, feeling time move in a way it doesn't anymore, slower, heavier, like the air itself is thick with memory. And for a moment, you almost feel at home. You sit there for a long time, just breathing, trying to match your rhythm to the slow heartbeat of the city. There's something about the way time moves here. It's not linear like yours, filled with schedules and alarms and deadlines. It moves in circles, like the seasons, like rituals. Every action has been done before. Every sound, every scent feels older than you can imagine. But soon, the stillness breaks. A man walks past, leading a donkey loaded with amphorae. Somewhere nearby, a hammer strikes metal, the clear ring of a blacksmith's forge. Athens might love ideas, but it runs on labor, and not the kind you clock out from at 5. You follow the sound of metal until you find a small workshop tucked behind a columned street. Inside, the heat is staggering. A young apprentice pumps a bellows, feeding fire into a bronze-smelling pit of glowing coals. Sparks leap like fireflies. The master blacksmith, bare-armed and sweating, shapes a piece of iron into what will soon be a spearhead. You watch for a while. The rhythm of his work feels hypnotic. Strike, turn, cool, strike again. There's no hurry, no chatter, just the deep, measured patience of someone who's done this his whole life. The tools are simple: hammers, tongs, chisels, but the skill is ancient magic. You might think these men would be respected. After all, they build the weapons and tools that keep the city alive. But in Athens, physical labor is considered lower status. The highest calling is not to make things, but to think about them. The philosophers get glory, the workers get calluses. Just down the street, another kind of work hums. A potter spins his wheel, shaping clay into cups, bowls, and vases that will carry oil and wine across the Aegean. The air smells like dust and earth and sun-warmed clay. Rows of finished pots line the walls, their black hand-read figures telling stories of gods, heroes, and men at war. You run your hand along one. It's smooth, balanced, almost alive. The potter notices and gives a nod, the kind that says, "Yeah, that's my craft." Across the street, a slave carries a basket of grain, his back bent under the weight. You notice how no one pays him any attention. He's as invisible as the shadows. Athens prides itself on freedom, on democracy, on equality, but that freedom rests on thousands of people who have none. There are slaves in every home, every workshop, every field. Some were captured in war, some born into servitude, some sold themselves to escape starvation. They cook, clean, teach, nurse, and haul. Their labor is the silent foundation of the Greek world. It's uncomfortable to watch. You want to say something, but the idea of questioning it here would be madness. To them, it's as natural as the sunrise. You pass a woman standing at a loom in her courtyard, weaving. Her fingers move fast, pulling threads through the wooden frame with practiced grace. The pattern grows slowly, a mix of blues and ochres, like sea and sand. She doesn't look up, but you can tell she's been doing this for years. Weaving isn't just a chore, it's an art form, and it's one of the few socially acceptable outlets for women's creativity. Behind her, a little girl sits spinning wool into yarn, humming softly. The house smells of smoke and olive oil. You realize how much of this world runs quietly, behind walls and under thresholds, women keeping households alive, one thread at a time. You move through the narrow streets again, your sandals stirring dust. The city changes as the day drifts toward afternoon. The sun blazes high, and most people pull into the shade. But you catch the scent of roasting meat, and that's strange, because meat isn't a daily thing here. You follow it, and find a small group gathered near a temple courtyard. It's a sacrifice day. An old priest stands beside an altar, his robe bright white against the sun. A goat, freshly washed and decorated with garlands, stands quietly beside him. The air is tense, sacred, and somehow practical all at once. This isn't just religion, it's community. The priest mutters prayers, raises a knife, and with one swift movement, the animal's throat is cut. The blood spills into a basin, steam rising as it hits the hot stones. You flinch, it's raw and shocking, but no one else reacts. To them, it's a normal part of honoring the gods. The meat will be roasted and shared. The smoke carries the offering upward. In this world, worship is physical. It smells like blood and fire. After the ceremony, people gather to eat. Small portions, quiet laughter, conversations about crops and omens. The priest sprinkles barley and wine on the altar, and you realize that this simple act, sacrifice and sharing, is what ties the city together. It's not faith the way you know it. It's duty, rhythm, balance. Later, as the shadows grow long, preparations for a festival begin. You hear drums and flutes in the distance. The Panathenaic procession is coming, one of the biggest celebrations in Athens, honoring Athena herself. The streets burst alive. Citizens in clean tunics line up, carrying torches, flowers, and small statues. Musicians play reed flutes, the air alive with sound. Young girls in white robes walk beside them, carrying baskets of offerings. Men hoist banners and garlands, shouting praises to the goddess who watches over their city. And there she stands, Athena gleaming gold atop the Acropolis, her bronze spear catching the last light of the sun. The people chant her name, their voices echoing off marble. You stand among them, swept up in the energy, feeling something ancient pulse in your chest. It's awe, it's fear, it's belonging. When the music fades and the procession ends, the streets filled with laughter and drink. You find yourself drawn toward the flicker of torchlight, the rhythm of dancing feet. People spill wine, sing hymns, shout jokes. The city feels alive in a way that's hard to describe, half holy, half human. You think about how these people live, with gods in their sky, fate in their hands, and philosophy in their heads. Everything here is a mix of reverence and chaos. Even their joy feels ancient, like it's been practiced for centuries. You stay out longer than you meant to, your feet dusty, your clothes clinging to the warmth of the night. The stars come out again, clear and sharp, like 1,000 small eyes watching. The sound of laughter fades, replaced by the distant murmur of waves against the Piraeus shore. Somewhere nearby, someone sings a soft, simple melody in an old tongue. You don't understand the words, but you feel them. It's a song about the sea, about home, about the fragile beauty of living in a world ruled by gods and time. And you realize something. The Greeks didn't just live in their world, they worshipped it. Every meal, every argument, every sacrifice was a reminder that life itself was a dialogue between humans and something vast beyond them. You close your eyes, letting the rhythm of the night sink in. Tomorrow, the debates will start again. The markets will open, the fires will burn, and someone, somewhere, will be shouting about virtue and fate. And you, just a traveler from the future, will keep trying to survive one more day in a city that never really sleeps, never really softens, and never stops being alive. The city finally softens around midnight. The last notes of flutes echo off the stone walls and dissolve into silence. For a moment, you think you can actually hear the stars, a hum so quiet it feels like the breath of the gods themselves. You stretch out under that deep, endless sky, the smell of smoke and salt still clinging to your clothes. Athens sleeps, but not deeply, never deeply. Even in rest, there's motion here. You wake before dawn again. No alarm, no clock, just the sound of someone sweeping the courtyard with a bundle of twigs. The sky's just starting to turn pale pink, and the air feels heavy with dew and the faint tank of olive oil and ash. Somewhere, a rooster decides it's already morning again, and you seriously consider starting a petition to ban them from existence. Inside the house, the first sparks of the fire crackle to life. The slaves are already moving, silent, efficient, half shadows in the flickering light. One brings water from the cistern, another grinds barley for the day's bread. Everything happens in practiced sequence, a rhythm of labor you could set a heartbeat to. The master of the house sits cross-legged near the doorway, rubbing olive oil into his skin before heading to the gymnasium. He catches your eye and smiles faintly, as if to say, "This is how it's done." He'll spend the morning talking politics and exercising, maybe attend a lecture. His wife, meanwhile, is already weaving again, her shuttle whispering across the threads. You wander outside, still rubbing sleep from your eyes. The city's waking up slow at first, then all at once. Dogs bark, children shout, carts rumble over uneven stones. The air fills with the smell of baking bread and smoke from cooking fires. You pass a group of kids chasing a hoop down the street, laughing as it bounces wildly. Childhood, at least, feels familiar. But when you stop to watch, you notice something else. Boys and girls play separately. The boys shout and roughhouse, pretending to be heroes from Homer's tales. The girls sit nearby, weaving small bracelets or watching quietly. It's not cruel, it's just the way it is. From birth, the paths are already drawn. If you were born male here, you'd spend your early years at home until about age 7, learning basic manners, myths, and religion. After that, you'd head to school, paid UHE. It's not formal the way you know school. There are no buildings, no desks, just small groups gathered under trees or in courtyards. A teacher reciting lines of poetry while the boys repeat them until the rhythm sticks. Reading, writing, music, and physical training, that's the core of it. The Greeks didn't separate mind and body. They believed both had to be shaped together. A soft mind in a weak body was useless, but so was a strong body without thought. Balance. That's the golden rule here. The teacher, or grammatists, is stern but not cruel. He makes the boys trace letters in the dust with a stick. Then on thin wax tablets, ink and parchment are expensive luxuries. You see a young student scowling, trying to copy the swooping curves of the Greek alphabet. Alpha, beta, gamma, his tongue sticking out in concentration. It's strangely endearing. When lessons end, they move to music. A lyre teacher plucks slow, elegant notes, teaching rhythm, pitch, and poetry. They sing verses from Homer's Iliad, the story of heroes and fate and divine meddling. The boys' voices rise unevenly, but the sound is sincere. You can see how these stories live here, not as distant myths, but as living lessons. Then there's the gymnasium again, wrestling, running, spear throwing, dust and sweat and laughter. Every boy is expected to train his body. To be unfit is shameful. You, panting after a few laps, are a walking embarrassment. But no one mocks you outright. They just smile, that polite Athenian smile that says, "We'll let the gods judge you." And if you're a girl, well, your education happens at home. You learn how to spin, weave, cook, manage servants, and, most importantly, how to be unseen in public. It's not that they think women are unintelligent, it's that the entire structure of the polis depends on the division between the public male and the private female. The man represents the city, the woman preserves the household. It's a harsh truth. You see it in the way women move, gracefully but quietly, like they're always aware of an invisible boundary they can't cross. Yet, within that boundary, they hold power. The household economy, the upbringing of children, the religious rituals, all of that flows through them. It's invisible authority, but authority nonetheless. You find yourself at a small shrine tucked between houses, an altar to Hestia, goddess of the hearth. A young woman kneels there, lighting a small lamp. The flame flickers, warm and golden. Every morning, she prays to Hestia to keep her family safe and her home in harmony. It's such a small act, yet you can feel how much it means. As you wander on, you hear coughing from a nearby house, deep, rattling, the kind that makes your chest ache just listening. Someone's sick. You hesitate, curious, and peek through the open doorway. Inside, a man lies on a mat, pale and sweating. A healer kneels beside him, mixing something thick and dark in a small clay bowl. Medicine, Greek style. It's part science, part faith, and part guesswork. The healer's no sorcerer, though magic is never far from their thinking. He mutters words about the humors, blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. Health, to him, is balance. Sickness is imbalance. So he mixes herbs to cool the fever, and whispers a prayer to Asclepius, god of healing, just to cover all bases. The mixture smells like mint and dirt and something sharp, maybe garlic. He feeds it to the patient, then presses his hand to the man's chest, eyes closed in concentration. There's no thermometer, no pulse check, no sterile tools, just touch and instinct. You realize, for all your modern medicine, there's something deeply human in this, the hope that care itself might heal. But not every illness can be treated. The Greeks live with constant danger, disease, wounds, childbirth, life expectancies short. You see death often, and it's not hidden behind hospital walls. Funerals are public, communal acts. The dead are washed, dressed, and laid out at home for a night, candles flickering beside them. Women wail, men speak solemn words, and then the body's carried through the streets to the grave. The grief isn't polite here. It's loud, raw, physical. People tear their hair, beat their chests, cry out to the gods. It's unsettling at first, but it's honest. They don't hide from death. They speak to it, argue with it, mourn it like a lost friend. You walk away from the house with the sick man, feeling heavy. The city looks different now. The same sun, the same marble walls, but everything feels more fragile. For all their brilliance, their art, their thinking, the Greeks live right up against the edge of uncertainty. Every day is borrowed time. You wander back toward the agora as the heat climbs again. A philosopher stands in the square, preaching about virtue. Children run past him laughing. A potter sells clay lamps. A woman bargains for figs. It's all so ordinary, so alive, and you think maybe that's what makes this place eternal. Not the marble temples, not the philosophers, not the wars or heroes, but this, the daily rhythm of people living, dying, laughing, arguing, loving, and somehow believing that what they do matters in the eyes of the gods. You sit down again at the fountain where you started, watching sunlight play on the rippling water. The same sound, the same motion. Time hasn't moved at all, and yet it's carried you through a lifetime. You dip your hand into the cool stream, tracing circles with your fingers. Around you, the voices of Athens rise again, and you can't help but smile. You wouldn't last a day here, maybe not even an afternoon. But for now, for this heartbeat of time, you're part of it. A sudden shout breaks through the calm. Two men are arguing by the fountain now, faces red, words sharp as knives. You can't quite follow all of it. The accent's thick, and the gestures are flying faster than you can track. But it's clear someone's accused someone else of cheating. Maybe it's over a debt, or a bad deal, or just pride. Whatever it is, it escalates quickly. One man grabs the other's tunic. The second man swings back. Water splashes. You flinch. Then, before it gets truly violent, a group of older men step in. Citizens, probably. They separate the fighters, mutter something about taking it to court, and drag them off toward the agora. Court, that's where justice happens here, or something like it. You follow at a distance, curiosity tugging you along. The scene shifts from chaos to ceremony. The Athenian court system isn't just a building, it's an event. There are no lawyers, no judges in robes, just a mass of citizens chosen by lot, hundreds of them, sitting on wooden benches, ready to pass judgment on whoever stands before them. The air smells like sweat, oil, and dust. The accused stands tall, nervous but defiant. He's got to speak for himself. There's no one to defend him but his own voice. You can tell he's practiced. He starts slow, respectful to the jurors, calling them good men of Athens. Then he launches into his story about honor, deception, friendship betrayed. The words roll like waves, rising with emotion, breaking in sudden tears. You realize something. These people love words the way modern folks love screens. They live for argument, rhetoric, persuasion. To speak well here isn't a luxury, it's survival. A clever tongue can save your life, or ruin someone else's. The crowd murmurs, shifts, reacts to every turn of phrase. A witness steps forward, trembling slightly. His testimony is simple, but in a world without written evidence, his word carries weight. A scribe sits nearby, scratching notes onto a wax tablet, keeping track of what's said. Then the accuser speaks louder, angrier, his voice cracking with outrage. It's mesmerizing. You can feel the tension in the air, like a string pulled tight. The jurors whisper among themselves, faces unreadable. Finally, the speeches end. A man walks through the rows with a pair of bronze urns, one labeled guilty, the other not guilty. Each juror drops a small pebble into one. No deliberation, no debate, just instinct, impression, emotion. The votes are counted. A moment of silence, and then the verdict, guilty. The man collapses, his voice breaking into desperate pleas. The crowd shifts again, restless but indifferent. Justice has been served, at least by their measure. He'll pay a fine, maybe lose his citizen rights, or worse. You feel a chill run down your spine. In this place, fairness is less about truth and more about performance. As the crowd disperses, you wander toward the edge of the agora. There, in the shadow of a tall wall, a small group of slaves is chained together, men and women, heads down, waiting. Some are war captives, others were born into it. Slavery is the quiet engine of Greek life. It's everywhere, invisible until you really look. The cooks, the cleaners, the men hauling water, the women grinding grain, all of them enslaved. They have no rights, no voice, no path to freedom unless their masters are unusually kind. Yet oddly, some are educated, scribes, tutors, accountants. Slavery here is complicated, cruel but deeply woven into the structure of everything. You watch one of the overseers walk past, counting them like livestock. It makes your stomach twist. For all their art and philosophy, the Greeks never questioned this system deeply. Freedom, to them, was for citizens, and citizen meant male landowning, an Athenian born. Everyone else existed to keep that world turning. You drift away, feeling heavier than before. The sun's dipping lower now, shadows stretching across the marble streets. Somewhere nearby, incense burns. You follow the scent to a small temple, its columns glowing gold in the fading light. Inside, it's quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your ears ring. A priestess moves slowly through the haze, her robes whispering against the stone floor. She sprinkles wine over an altar, then lays a handful of barley grains beside it. You stand at the edge, not wanting to disturb her. Religion here isn't private. It's not something you keep in your heart. It's something you live. The gods are everywhere, watching, listening, judging. You don't pray alone in your bedroom. You join the whole city at the temple. You give offerings, attend festivals, burn sacrifices. Every action is a conversation with the divine. And those gods, they're not distant, merciful beings. They're fickle, emotional, as human as the people who worship them. They love, fight, punish, forgive, sometimes in the same day. You could please one and offend another without realizing it. You think about how exhausting that must be, to live always aware of being watched by immortals with moods. But there's beauty in it too. The way the smoke curls upward like a message, the way the songs echo through the temple. It's art as devotion, faith as performance. As the ceremony ends, the priestess catches your eye. For a moment, you feel she sees straight through you, a stranger, out of place, but curious enough to watch. She nods once, then turns away. You take it as permission to leave. Outside, night falls fast. The torches flare to life, casting flickering halos across the streets. People gather for evening meals, small clusters of laughter and conversation. Someone strums a lyre in the distance. Somewhere else, an argument rises and fades like the tide. But not everyone in Athens sleeps peacefully. You catch sight of a small group huddled in an alleyway, whispering. They're drawing strange shapes in the dirt, circles, lines, symbols. You recognize none of it, but the tone is unmistakable. Fear, mixed with hope. Superstition is alive and well here, even among the educated. The Greeks might have philosophy and logic, but they still believe in curses, omens, and spirits. Evil eyes, love potions, protective charms. The streets are full of them. You can even buy curse tablets, thin sheets of lead, inscribed with names and pleas to the underworld. People bury them in graves or wells, hoping spirits will carry their messages. You see one woman clutching a small figurine, whispering over it. Her eyes are red from crying. Maybe she's praying for love, or revenge, or luck. You can't tell. But her devotion feels raw, desperate. In a world where gods control everything, sometimes you have to try and twist fate a little. As you move closer, she looks up sharply, tucking the charm into her robe. Her voice is soft, wary. Careful where you walk, stranger. Some places hold the dead too close. Then she turns away. You shiver. The night feels thicker now, like the air itself is listening. The torches gutter and hiss, shadows jumping across the walls. Somewhere, a dog howls long and low. You tell yourself it's just a dog, but the part of you that believes in logic starts to falter. Because here, in this city of reason and beauty, the supernatural still lingers just behind every doorway. You pass a shrine to Hecate, goddess of witchcraft, standing at a crossroads. Offerings litter the ground, small cakes, bits of fruit, even a few coins. The Greeks leave them here to keep spirits calm, to ward off the restless dead. You feel a chill trace your spine as you step around it carefully. By the time you reach the edge of the city, the moon is high and bright. The countryside stretches dark and quiet beyond the walls. You can see the faint outline of olive trees swaying in the breeze, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barks again. You sit on a stone, catching your breath, listening to the wind move through the grass. Athens hums behind you, alive, chaotic, divine and human all at once. You realize you've spent the whole day trying to understand it, to fit inside it, and still it keeps slipping through your fingers. Maybe that's the secret. To live in ancient Greece isn't to control life, it's to dance with it, to accept that everything changes, that fortune and failure are both gifts from the same hands. You glance back toward the city lights. The temple domes gleam faintly. Somewhere, someone's laughing. Somewhere else, someone's praying. And for a moment, it feels eternal. You wouldn't last a day here, and yet, somehow, you already have. The night deepens, but Athens doesn't sleep. It shifts. The day's order, markets, courts, temples, melts into something looser, more intimate, and far more unpredictable. You can feel it in the air as you wander back toward the heart of the city, a warmth, a pulse, the sound of quiet music trickling through doorways. The torches burn lower, casting long shadows across the walls, and you realize something. This is when the Greeks let their masks slip. By day, everything's public, structured, proper, full of rules. But at night, that's when they drink, sing, gossip, and whisper the things they'd never dare to say under the sun. You follow the music. It leads you to a courtyard glowing with lamplight. Inside, men recline on low couches arranged in a circle around a table. You've stumbled upon a symposium, the ancient Greek version of a party, except with more philosophy and slightly less self-control. A slave opens the door just wide enough for you to see. The host sits near the center, wearing a wreath of ivy around his head. His guests are in various stages of relaxed chaos, some laughing loudly, others slumped against pillows, a few already trying to quote poetry through a slur. Wine flows freely, but not just any wine. Greek wine is thick, strong, and always mixed with water. Drinking it straight is barbaric, a quick way to prove you have no manners or. The master of the feast, the symposiarch, decides the ratio of water to wine. Too weak, and everyone gets bored. Too strong, and the night ends in disaster. Balance, as always, is the Greek ideal. A flute girl plays softly in the background, the notes weaving through the laughter like smoke. Another slave pours wine into a shallow cup and hands it to the man beside her. The cup, the kylix, is painted with scenes that only appear as the wine level drops. Dancing satyrs, mischievous gods, things that make the drinkers laugh or blush. A man across the room raises his cup and begins to speak, a toast, or maybe a philosophical challenge. You can't quite tell, but the others cheer. The conversation shifts from jokes to poetry, to questions about love and virtue. That's the strange beauty of a symposium. One moment you're laughing about donkeys, the next you're debating the meaning of happiness. They pass around a small bowl of roasted chickpeas and figs. Someone claps to the rhythm of the flute. Then a younger man, probably drunk, stands and starts to recite verses from Homer, loudly, dramatically, with wild gestures that send bits of wine flying. Everyone cheers, and through it all, you realize something that makes you grin. This is the birthplace of Western philosophy, and it smells like wine and sweat. Socrates himself probably sat in rooms just like this, challenging everyone around him between sips of wine, asking impossible questions until they either gave up or fell asleep mid-debate. You're offered a cup, and after a moment's hesitation, you take it. The wine's sweet, sharp, and warm going down. It burns a little, like honesty. The talk drifts toward love now, as it often does here. Greek love isn't simple. It's tangled up in ideals and poetry, and the very fabric of how they understand beauty and virtue. You listen as the men debate what kind of love is best, the kind that inflames the body, or the kind that inspires the soul. It's strange and tender, and a little sad, because you can tell that beneath the laughter and debate, there's always that ache for something more, connection, understanding, maybe even immortality through affection. The music softens. Someone begins to sing, his voice rough but heartfelt. The song's about a sailor lost at sea, calling out to the stars for home. The others listen quietly, the torches flickering gold across their faces. Even the drunkest among them falls silent for a while. When the song ends, there's a long pause. Then someone throws a handful of rose petals at the singer, and the laughter returns. Later, when the lamps burn low, the tone shifts again. The conversation thins, replaced by softer murmurs and quiet laughter. Couples drift into corners. Old friends lean close to trade confessions. The air is heavy with wine and perfume, smoke curling toward the ceiling. You slip outside for air. The courtyard's quiet now, the noise fading behind the door. Above you, the stars are thick, impossibly bright. Somewhere nearby, another house hums with a similar rhythm, more laughter, more songs. Athens is alive in 1,000 tiny pockets of night. You walk the narrow streets, sandals scuffing against stone. A group of women passes, heads covered, voices low. They're hetairai courtesans, educated companions rather than servants. Unlike most women, they can move freely, speak their minds, even attend these parties. They live outside the rules, respected and condemned in equal measure. One of them catches your eye as she passes. She smiles, not coy but curious. Her earrings catch the torchlight. "You're lost," she says, not as a question but as a simple truth. You laugh softly, because she's right. She studies you for a moment, then gestures toward the main road. "Follow the music. Athens will find you again." You thank her, but before you can say more, she's gone, swallowed by the shadows and laughter ahead. You wander further, drawn by another sound now, drums, deep, rhythmic, alive. They lead you to another gathering, not a private symposium this time, but something wilder, freer, a festival. The Greeks have a festival for everything: wine, fertility, death, rebirth, the seasons, the gods, the moon. Every month brings another excuse to celebrate. Tonight, it's Dionysus again, the god who blurs the line between sanity and madness, the patron of joy and chaos. You find yourself in a small square lit by dozens of oil lamps. Men and women dance in circles, their movements wild and fluid. Flutes wail, drums pound, feet stomp. It's hypnotic, raw, electric. Someone hands you a wreath of ivy. Someone else pushes a cup of wine into your hand. You hesitate only for a moment, then join in. The crowd swirls, laughter echoing against the stone walls. You lose track of rhythm, time, self. For a few breaths, You understand the Greeks better than any lecture or scroll could ever teach you. They lived to feel fully, fiercely, without apology. And then, as suddenly as it began, it ends. The music slows. People stumble off in twos and threes, singing softly. You stand there, dizzy, the night spinning gently around you. By the time you make it back to the house, the sky is starting to pale again. The first hint of dawn touches the rooftops. Inside, the lamps have burned out. The courtyard is still. You hear someone snoring softly in the next room. You lie down on a simple mat, pulling a thin blanket over yourself. The air smells of smoke and olive oil and faint traces of wine. Your body hums with exhaustion, your mind full of noise, laughter, arguments, songs, gods. You think back on the day, the heat, the hunger, the dust, the beauty, the chaos, and you realize how much life fits into a single day here. Every hour burns bright, full of purpose or pleasure or pain. Your eyes grow heavy. The cicadas start their morning chorus. Somewhere, a rooster crows again, heralding another sunrise you're not sure you're ready for. You smile to yourself, drifting. You wouldn't last a day in ancient Greece. But you did last one night, and somehow, that feels like enough. The first light creeps over Athens, soft and pale, brushing the tops of marble columns and glinting on the Acropolis. The city breathes slowly at first, a muted murmur of footsteps, the gentle clatter of pottery, the faint braying of a donkey somewhere in the distance. You wake stiff, muscles sore from the night's wandering and dancing, but there's no time to linger. Life begins again, and here, the new day waits for no one. You step outside, sandals scraping against stone, and immediately notice the air, cooler than yesterday, but heavy with the scent of baking bread, olive oil, and the distant temps of the sea. The streets are quieter now, but not empty. Early risers are already moving, women carrying water from the cistern, slaves sweeping courtyards, bakers hauling trays of warm bread from the ovens. Everything hums with purpose, a rhythm older than memory. Your first stop is the fountain, the same one where you sat the night before. Water glints in the morning sun. You splash your face, the cool shock waking you fully. The Greeks loved to begin the day clean, or at least as clean as one could be, without modern plumbing. Public baths exist, but most citizens bathe at home. A few jars of water, a bit of oil, and scrapers called gels, not exactly luxurious, but effective. Nearby, you notice boys jogging past, naked as the day they were born, carrying small spears. They're on their way to the gymnasium. Physical training is sacred here, more than exercise. It's preparation for life. You watch a group practice wrestling, their bodies tense, eyes focused. A trainer shouts corrections, adjusting grips, posture, stance. It's discipline, but it's also ritual. Every movement is calculated, a rehearsal for the unpredictability of life, or war, or both. You drift toward a temple tucked along the edge of the agora. Priests and citizens are performing morning rituals, offering incense, sprinkling water, murmuring prayers. Religion here is not a compartmentalized part of life. It's woven into every action. Even a casual stroll down a street involves acknowledging the gods, a quick nod to a statue of Hermes, a whispered thanks to Hestia at the hearth. You realize that every glance, every motion, is a small act of devotion in a city constantly seeking balance between mortals and immortals. A little further on, you notice a school of sorts forming under the shade of a tree. Boys gather around a grammatist, who speaks slowly, reciting lines of Homer. The children repeat after him, words echoing in the crisp morning air. There's music in their chants, the rise and fall of syllables, the rhythm of their small voices building memory and discipline. Writing is done on thin wax tablets, the teacher guiding fingers over scratchy lines to form letters. You watch, fascinated. Education here is less about grades or tests, and more about molding character, mind, and speech, preparing future citizens for debate, duty, and action. Meanwhile, girls stay at home. Their education happens in quiet, inside the walls of their homes, weaving, managing the household, learning to balance the family economy, observing rituals, and acquiring the skills necessary for life. The contrast is stark, yet women wield power quietly. They preserve the household, raise the children, perform religious duties. Their influence is subtle but absolute, flowing through every corner of domestic life. You wander past a small courtyard where a woman spins wool on a spindle, her hands moving with practiced grace. A girl, probably 7 or 8, mimics her movements, struggling slightly with the fibers. There's a patience here you can feel, centuries of habit, learned through repetition, transmitted from mother to daughter, woman to girl. Life at home is quiet, invisible to most, yet foundational to the city itself. The streets are beginning to fill now. Merchants set up stalls, fresh figs, olives, pottery, woven goods. The smell of roasting grain drifts from a nearby oven. Children chase each other, laughing, their voices rising above the market's bustle. Life is chaotic but balanced, structured yet improvisational. Every citizen knows their role. Every observer knows where they do not belong. You feel the weight of being an outsider, watching but not fully participating. You reach the agora, the heart of the city, buzzing with discussion. Citizens argue over politics, philosophy, trade, and justice. The air vibrates with rhetoric. Words are weapons and shields. Persuasion is power, and listening is survival. You notice that even casual conversations carry the undertone of debate. Every citizen here must think, weigh, and speak. Ignorance is tolerated poorly. Your eyes catch a man being corrected, mid-sentence, by an older, sharper voice. He reddens, mutters, and nods respectfully. Around the square, artisans display their work. Bronze figurines, painted vases, carved wood. Some are for practical use. Some are objects of beauty, storytelling frozen in clay. You pause before a vase depicting a hero battling a beast. The brushstrokes are delicate, precise, conveying movement, emotion, tension. You realize that art here is not decoration. It's memory, instruction, and legacy. Every shape, every figure, carries narrative power. Then you notice a commotion near one of the gates. A group has gathered to watch a young man being punished for theft. Punishment in Athens is public and performative. Fines, public shaming, or even exile for more severe crimes. Justice is civic, intended not just to punish, but to teach, to warn. You feel your stomach tighten. Observing it is uncomfortable. Participating would be unthinkable. Yet it's part of the rhythm of this society, a reminder that the laws, like the gods, are always present. As the morning stretches into afternoon, the city grows hotter, dust rising from the streets. Laborers haul water, sweep courtyards, mend pottery. Slaves work tirelessly, the invisible backbone of Greek life. Some are war captives, others are born into servitude. Their lives are constrained, their futures uncertain, yet their hands shape the city as much as the architects, philosophers, and politicians. You wander back toward a small temple to Asclepius, god of healing. A healer tends to a sick man. Herbs, poultices, prayers. Medicine in Greece is both art and superstition, theory and hope. The healer's touch is careful, deliberate, almost ritualistic. There's no certainty here, just experience, observation, and a belief in divine favor. You realize that life in Athens is a constant negotiation between knowledge and chance, skill and fate. By the time the sun is high overhead, you feel the day pressing down. Heat, dust, labor, noise, and wonder all blending into one relentless experience. There's no pause, no retreat, no respite. Athens demands engagement, presence, and adaptation. Even a moment of idleness feels indulgent. You find a quiet spot near a fountain, leaning back against the cool stone. The water glimmers, the city buzzes around you, and you think about what it means to live here, to wake each day knowing that life is beautiful, dangerous, and fleeting. The rhythm is constant: labor, worship, learning, debate, celebration, and repetition. Every action ties you to the past, the gods, and your fellow citizens. And somewhere deep down, you know the truth. You wouldn't last a day here. Not because of the heat, or the dust, or the crowds. Not because of the naked athletes, or the endless debate. It's because Athens is alive in a way your modern life cannot imitate. Every sense, every instinct, every moment demands your full attention, your full presence. And you're not built for that intensity. Yet for this one morning, this one heartbeat of Athens, you are part of it. You feel it in the sun on your skin, the scent of olive oil, the echoes of voices in the square. You are a witness to a civilization built on beauty, intellect, faith, and relentless energy. And even if you cannot survive here long, even if you stumble and sweat and falter, the city leaves a mark on you that no time, no distance, can erase. By midday, the sun is merciless. The white marble glows like fire, and even the stones underfoot seem to radiate heat. You wipe sweat from your brow and step carefully through the streets, noticing how the city shifts with the temperature. Merchants retreat into shaded stalls, slaves fan themselves with scraps of cloth, and children scatter, looking for cool corners to hide from the blaze. Labor is relentless here. Slaves carry water from wells to kitchens, sweep courtyards, and tend animals. Their movements are precise, efficient, almost silent, practiced over years of repetition. You realize that these invisible workers make everything else possible. The philosophers, the artists, the politicians, and even the festival-goers. The city itself depends on their endurance. Without them, Athens would falter before the sun even reaches its peak. You follow a group of men hauling sacks of grain toward the marketplace. The weight bends their backs, each step careful, precise. One stumbles slightly, and another steadies him with a hand to the shoulder. There's no complaint, no protest, just steady, tireless motion. You feel your muscles ache just watching them. Nearby, a potter molds clay into cups and bowls under the shade of a small awning. His fingers are coated with earth-colored dust. Every motion is deliberate, every curve intentional. Finished pots line the walls, painted with black figure depictions of gods and heroes, frozen mid-action. This isn't just craft, it's communication, education, and legacy. The Greeks record their stories in pottery, in sculpture, in rhythm and voice. Every object carries weight, narrative, and meaning. You drift toward the harbor next, where ships creak against the docks. Sailors and dockhands are busy loading amphorae filled with olive oil and wine. The smell of salt and tar fills the air. Trade is vital to Athens, and the sea is both lifeline and threat. Merchants argue loudly, haggling over price, weight, and quality. The harbor hums with constant motion, the pulse of the city's economy. A soldier walks past, armor clinking faintly. He carries a spear, polished and ready. War is never far from Athens. Even in the busiest marketplaces, there's awareness that the polis relies on men to defend it. Boys at the gymnasium train, not just for sport, but for survival. Every citizen's strength matters. Every skill counts. The tension underlies every casual conversation, every business deal, every leisurely walk. You notice a group of children playing a rough game with a ball of leather. They shout, tumble, and scramble across the street. You smile for a moment, seeing innocence in the chaos. Then your attention is drawn to a man being led to a small courthouse nearby. His hands are bound, and he walks with his head low. Theft, fraud, or some other civic crime you don't know. But in Athens, punishment is public, communal. The city judges and punishes openly, a constant reminder that law governs everyone. Slavery appears again, unavoidable. Slaves tend animals, clean streets, serve at the marketplace, and ferry heavy loads. Some work alongside craftsmen, learning a skill, yet their freedom is non-existent. Even skilled labor cannot free them. Athens thrives on this paradox. Liberty for some, bondage for others, the two always intertwined. By afternoon, the heat drives most citizens indoors or into shaded courtyards. You find a small fountain, lean against the cool stone, and observe life flowing past. A woman carries water to her household. A child chases a dog. A merchant haggles over a jar of honey. Life, in all its messy brilliance, continues relentlessly. You notice a small temple tucked behind a market stall. Priests are busy preparing offerings for the evening. Incense burns, and a faint scent of roasted meat drifts from the altar. Even in the heart of trade and labor, religion is constant. Worship here is practical, woven into daily life, tied to every act, from harvest to trade, from childbirth to death. As the sun begins its descent, shadows stretch across the city. Laborers are still at work, but fatigue is visible. Slaves move more slowly. Children tire. Merchants fold up their goods. You feel your own body ache, realizing that the intensity of a single day here would exhaust even the hardiest visitor. Evening approaches, and with it comes the promise of festivals, symposia, and the nocturnal pulse of Athens. People begin to clean and prepare their homes. Food is roasted and shared. Music rises from hidden courtyards. Lamps are lit, casting flickering golden circles on walls. You wander past a small alley where a group is whispering over charms and small figurines, curses, love spells, protective amulets. Superstition is alive, even among the educated. Fear and hope mingle in these acts, showing that logic and philosophy coexist with primal belief. The Greeks live in a world balanced precariously between reason and faith, intellect and instinct. You finally find a quiet spot atop a small rise, overlooking the city. The streets glow with torchlight, shadows dancing across marble and mud brick. The sounds of the day fade into night, laughter, music, footsteps, distant shouts. Athens is alive, chaotic, beautiful, and cruel all at once. You realize that one day here, even without fully participating, is overwhelming. To survive fully, you would need strength, cunning, patience, and acceptance of a world far stranger and harsher than your own. The heat, the labor, the social rules, the gods, the justice system, the superstitions, all demand attention and adaptation. And yet, despite the exhaustion, despite the danger and complexity, the city pulses with life. Every action, every ritual, every laugh and cry is woven into the fabric of this ancient place. You may not last a full day, but you can understand, even briefly, the energy and vitality that make Athens extraordinary. The sun dips below the horizon. Night promises another cycle, symposia, festivals, whispered conversations, music, and ritual. The city will shift again, changing shape as darkness falls, and life will continue, tireless, relentless, and unyielding. You sit for a moment, letting the wind carry the smells and sounds of the city. Tomorrow will demand more: labor, worship, education, and survival. And yet, you've glimpsed the pulse of Athens, and that knowledge hums inside you. You wouldn't last a day here, not truly, but you've survived enough to feel the rhythm of life that has carried this civilization for centuries. Hey guys, so here we are, the end of the day, the end of your short-lived adventure in ancient Greece. If you've managed to survive this long, congratulations, you've already outlasted what most visitors could handle. But let's be honest, surviving a full day here, that's a different story. By now, you've seen the city in its full, relentless glory, the markets buzzing with haggling and shouting, slaves hauling water and grain without pause, artisans crafting pots and bronze with skill that could make your modern hands ache just from watching. You've wandered through temples, witnessed sacrifices, felt the tension of the courts, and maybe even stumbled into a symposium, clutching your wine cup like it was a lifeline. But Athens isn't kind to the unprepared. The sun bakes your skin, dust sticks to every damp patch, and the heat alone could wear down the strongest traveler. You've walked over stone streets that radiate the afternoon blaze, and your legs ache from climbing hills and weaving through the crowds. You've navigated a society obsessed with rules, hierarchies, and appearances, where a misstep could bring public shame or worse. You've also glimpsed the hidden layers of this city, the invisible world of women, managing households, weaving, tending children, performing rituals that hold the city together from the shadows. You've seen the slaves, carrying the weight of Athens on their backs, their lives invisible yet utterly essential. And everywhere, the gods linger, fickle, watchful, demanding attention and devotion at every turn. You've smelled the markets and the baking bread, the smoke of sacrifices, the tang of the sea, and even the faint scent of fear in the narrow alleys where superstition thrives. You've heard the debates, the music, the laughter, and the arguments that make up the unending chorus of life in the city. And maybe, if you were lucky, you caught a glimpse of its beauty, the glitter of marble in sunlight, the rhythm of the lyre, the way festivals and symposia pulse with energy and passion, the raw human vibrancy of a society constantly striving, celebrating, and surviving. But here's the thing: surviving a single day in ancient Greece isn't about avoiding danger. It's not just about not getting burned by the sun, scalded by a pot, or crushed under the weight of a grain sack. It's about adapting to a world that moves on its own terms, a world that demands strength, cunning, intelligence, endurance, and a willingness to accept things that feel morally or physically impossible by modern standards. You've walked among philosophers debating virtue while slaves scrub floors. You've seen the young wrestlers train while women spin wool. You've watched sacrifices that would make your stomach churn while the city hums with ordinary life, utterly indifferent. Every day in Athens is a test, whether you notice it or not. And here's the kicker: you, modern traveler, come armed with knowledge, convenience, and comfort, things these people barely recognize. But all that doesn't help when faced with heat, hierarchy, superstition, and the unrelenting demands of civic and domestic life. You might survive physically, but surviving socially and psychologically, that's another story. You'd flounder in the agora, misunderstand the subtle rules of gender and class, and probably offend the gods at least once. Yet, despite it all, there's beauty here that modern life rarely gives you. Life in Athens is vivid and immediate. Every smell, sound, and sight carries meaning. Every act is tied to the larger rhythm of the city, the gods, and the cycle of human life. There's a rawness here, a blend of chaos and order, pleasure and danger, intellect and superstition, that makes the city pulse with energy you can feel in your bones. By sunset, as the torches flare and the symposia begin anew, you sit quietly, thinking back on your day. You think about the intensity, the heat, the labor, the debate, the laughter, the fear, the devotion. You realize that this city, this culture, is not for the faint of heart. It's a living organism, and it expects all who enter to keep up or be swallowed. So why wouldn't you last a day in ancient Greece? Because it doesn't forgive weakness, ignorance, or hesitation. It demands engagement on every level: body, mind, spirit. It requires patience and endurance, humor and cunning, observation and respect for a world that is utterly different from your own. And yet, despite all the danger, discomfort, and confusion, there's an undeniable allure. You wouldn't last a day, sure, but if you did, even for a few hours, you would witness a civilization at the height of its contradictions, brilliant and harsh, enlightened and superstitious, generous and cruel, beautiful and terrifying. You stand, brushing dust from your clothes, and glance back at the city, marble glinting, streets alive, torches flickering, distant music weaving through the night air. You realize that even as a visitor, you've been part of the rhythm, the pulse, the unending energy that keeps Athens alive. And then you laugh quietly to yourself. Because let's be honest, surviving a single day in ancient Greece might be impossible, but experiencing it, feeling it, watching it unfold with all its chaos and wonder, that's something few people ever get to do, and you just did. So, maybe you wouldn't last a day, but for now, for tonight, you've survived, and you've glimpsed what makes this ancient world unforgettable. And that, my friends, is why you wouldn't last a day in ancient Greece.